Play that fucking track. Play that fucking track. Oh, there it is. Limp Bizkit, DMX. What? Redman. That's right, y'all. Method Man. We just keep on rolling, baby. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Now move in. Now move out. Hands up and hands down. Back up. Back up. Tell me what you're gonna do now. Breathe in. Now breathe out. Hands up or hands down. They can't make up their mind. Back up. Back up. Tell me what you're gonna do now. Come on. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. What? Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Bracket. Fred Durst. Colon.
That's...
Bracket. This is Fred Durst. Now I know y'all be loving this shit right here. Limp Bizkit is right here. People in the house, put them hands in the air. Because if you don't care, guess what? We don't care. Yeah. See, I ain't giving a fuck. Quit pressing your luck. Untouchable. I'm branded unfuckable. I don't know why. So keep me in this cage.
Because he wears a backwards red hat and an oversized parka in the middle of L.A. So he's an idiot. We've established this. That's good. We're done.
So keep me in this cage until you run that mouth. Then I'ma have the plague and break the fuck out.
I think Paul's about to break your phone out.
Just stop it.
And then we'll see who's left after one round with X. And what am I bringing next? Just know it's Red and Meth. So where the fuck you at, punk? Shut the fuck up and back the fuck up while we fuck this track up. Are you ready?
For the power trip.
There you go.
Oh, God. The vast majority of what passes for lyrics in music cracks me up.
Oh, the song gets so much better. Check my dangerous slang atrocious.
God, that's enough.
When I let these nuts hang. It's Wu-Tang.
Stop!
I'm stopping.
Please. For the love of all that's good and holy that's left in this world, please stop.
Smell up the bathroom.
Stop!
Like Craig Paw was in it. What the fuck does that mean?
Look it up.
No.
Who's Craig Paw?
Can you please?
I'll crack them all to
Please
Guinness.
stop. Please stop. Please stop.
It's not going to stop. This is Andy.
Oh, no, it's done. Don't worry. Wait.
What?
That was a good DMX.
All right, seriously, stop it.
No, I'll play the opening song.
Oh God.
All right, hello everybody.
Hey guys, welcome back.
That opening was courtesy of Fred Durst, Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
I just got to say you're no Jon Snow from BBC.
No, I'm not British.
This was
man.
that was an executive decision by Andy to
damn right.
open with that. It was none of us had anything to do with that.
Nope, that's my new recurring segment, dramatic readings of Limp Bizkit songs, because they're so funny. They're so funny, boys. I can't. You know you listened to Limp Bizkit as a kid.
No,
Yeah.
I never did.
Yes, you did.
First-
Never
Nookie,
did.
I did it all for the Nookie.
Nope.
No, it's just one of those days. It's all about the he said, she said
And
bullshit.
now we're demonetized.
Oh no, that's why I changed it, because I sound so much
Always
like
been
Fred fucking
demonetized.
Durst.
That's fine.
There's a strike. It was too close to the real thing.
We look like nipples. I found that out. We look like nips. I look like nips.
You do.
Maybe they thought you two looked like dicks. That's why they banned that thumbnail.
Yeah, maybe.
Two dicks and a nip. I found the new name for the channel. Two dicks and a nip. Yeah, so that's
This is going great.
Yeah.
it's going
no,
good.
it's
Welcome back to
derailing.
Power Trip. How's everything going? How's
It was good till you started reading Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, basically.
How's Tricks? Wow, this couldn't have sounded more like our grandparents.
How's Tricks?
You never heard that saying?
No.
No, you never heard that?
No,
How's
I
Tricks? Like,
haven't-
how's it going?
I haven't
think
had-
that was more
I
about
have one
parenting.
question.
Yeah.
English, motherfucker.
Yeah,
you
I-
speak it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't had Tricks today. No.
Oh my god.
I haven't had Tricks in a long, long time.
Okay. When you had Tricks as a kid, we're talking about the cereal now.
Are we?
We are talking about the tricks. Yes. Are you up now? You're not upset, but now they went to the puffs where everything's just a uniform ball, right? They're just Trix balls. They're not the fruit shapes.
Then it's just fruity kicks.
Basically.
Yeah.
But now they have different flavors of Trix.
Okay.
Kind of like how all our cereals growing up now have different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a funny thing that I read once that said, is the reason Trix don't look like fruit anymore is because Trix are for kids.
No.
Oh, that's really funny. No, because
Hilarious.
No, that's the kids are going to see them as the balls though. Too. It's not just adults who cannot see them as fruit anymore because they're adults.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, that
it's
is
just one of those
stupid.
things that made me giggle.
That
I
is
was like,
stupid.
yeah. Oh, Trix.
No different than birds being a product of the government. For God's sakes, now the government has changed our tricks.
All our poor birds. Now they're changing Trix. I mean, it's,
No, clearly Trix are a Mandela effect.
that's true. They were never fruit.
Yeah. Yes, they were.
Just like there was never M&Ms that were all just the brown M&Ms. Even though I distinctly remember they at one point they didn't have a lot of the colors.
No.
There were colors. They didn't have all those colors in the M&M's bags.
Originally it was brown, yellow, red, I
Yeah.
think.
Then they added green, and then they added blue later.
I think
Most people remember them as all the colors.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you know that?
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. But then again, we didn't really have a lot of M&Ms.
I remember it was well, when my parents owned a liquor store, we used to sell
you
candy
used
too.
to see all the you used to see all that stuff. Yeah.
So like I remember when like Mrs. Fields cookies, like when they started selling those, or not Mrs. Fields, Famous Amos.
so in '95, the tan M&Ms became blue,
Yeah, I remember the tan M&M.
and the tan had replaced violet back in 1949.
Oh wow!
Oh my god, there's violet.
So in 41, they were introduced. They were red, yellow, green, brown, orange, violet.
Really?
And-
Yeah,
the 40s.
so
Oh,
so
wow.
it's always
Okay.
been the same colors.
Sort of, I guess.
Well, except
I
for the
suppose
tan.
marketing-wise, it's always been brown, red, yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just one of those things I always find funny. It's just things. I don't know.
So back then, was it Mrs. Fields or was it Miss Fields?
well, before she got married.
Yeah, before she got married.
Oh my god.
Yeah, what
married
happened
off
there?
to Famous Amos.
Well, I mean, she couldn't have been Mrs. Fields the entire time.
could have been an arranged
She
marriage.
had to start somewhere. Miss Fields.
Baby Fields.
Although maybe it wasn't even Miss Fields then. If
Could've just been
she
Fields.
took a married name, a different last name.
Is that even a national thing, Mrs. Fields cookies, or is that?
I don't know. I actually
That's a
I'm
good
not sure. I want to say it is, but I'm not 100% sure.
Nobody knows.
We've really derailed this conversation.
Yeah, I don't know where that
haven't
went. Anyway,
What we get for letting Andy do the opening.
we? Yep, for sure.
I scrambled your brains up. So we're gonna be talking about. We're gonna talk about a few things today.
We are.
But the biggest thing is going to be the second issue of Last Ronin came out a little while ago. A few weeks, I think. Right?
I think it's been
a month,
2
maybe?
or 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a while. So we're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about it at the end of the podcast so we can avoid spoilers and shit again for you people who do want to read the comic. So yeah, we'll talk about a couple other things in the meantime. So I saw an interesting question, right, that was posed to me. Well, not me specifically, but I just happened to see an interesting question that made me think, and I wanted to get your guys' input on this. If you could play one game console for the rest of your life, or you have to, like this, you can only pick one, what would it be? Now, mind you,
I can't do my smart ass answer.
you cannot pick PS2 and then have also the PS1 library. You can't pick GameCube and
No, my
have
smart-ass
Game Boy,
answer-
GameCube, and
My
you know,
smart ass answer was going to be computer, and then I have them all.
computer is not a gaming system. We will. Well,
Says you.
technically it is, but no computer. It can only be the console, and that's their library. So what? This excludes all digital. So only things that were released physically, and the console. What would be your choice?
I think ultimately, see, it would come down to me to the Super Nintendo or the PlayStation 1. And
Interesting.
I those are the ones that I have the most sentimentality for. I grew up playing a lot of Super Nintendo, and when I first got a PlayStation 1, then that kind of took over all of the memories from the Super Nintendo. But I think honestly, if I had only one, could never play another system ever again, and it could only be this one, it would be Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo.
It would be Super Nintendo. There's a lot of gems on the system. There's still a lot of gems that I still haven't even discovered yet. And so I think, honestly, it's got a vast library. It's got such classics on it. And I think it was a good balance between great storytelling and better graphics than the Nintendo. But it was like... It was right in the middle. Like, it kind of blended the story lines of, like, PlayStation games and storytelling of, like, the PlayStation era, but better graphics than the Nintendo era. So it's like right in that middle. It was really well done.
Yeah.
In all directions.
We'll get those people there like, oh, I thought you picked Nintendo. And it's like,
no, I would not. Yes, there are some gems, and some of my favorite games of all time are on the Nintendo, but unfortunately, there's a lot of crap on the Nintendo as well, too.
I would say surprising. Like, the NES was all my formative years for gaming, admittedly. So it's like, yes, while the NES itself has the treasure trove of just so many good games, you're right. There's a glut of a lot of bad games, too. So it's like, I think I would be hard-pressed to play the maybe, 30 to 40 good games.
Well, and you really think... Well, no, there's a lot more than that. I would say
ones you would play over and over.
I would say
about 30 to 40.
No, I would say that Nintendo-wise, there's probably at least a good 100 games. I would say there's 100 games that you would play. What?
Now he's bullshit.
No, you're bullshit.
No, I'm not. I'm dead serious. I think that, and I think that you're just not.
You can't even think of 100 games you've liked on the channel so far.
That's because we haven't played all 678 of them.
But we played 200 something.
Yeah. Well, guess what? I've only liked about a good maybe
15.
a third or a fourth of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if I liked only a fourth of that, that's 50 games already.
Yeah.
So 30 to 40, yeah, no, stop. Now you're trying to criticize me, and I see where it's going, but it's not gonna work.
It's not working.
Not gonna work. But you have a lot of classic series that started off on the Nintendo, or that were created on the Nintendo. Like you had Castlevania, Final Fantasy, Metroid, Mario, Zelda. A lot of different iconic series. Almost every single one of them got a remake or a reimagining on the Super Nintendo, or had sequels that were told on the Super Nintendo that were honestly better than the originals.
I can see that.
So, I mean, I honestly think that the trade-off, you're not really losing a whole lot by going with the Super Nintendo versus the Nintendo.
See, now, actually, one quandary I have with this question that I didn't think of is, would this apply to games that were technically not released for us? So, like, you think the Nintendo, how many games for the NES weren't released here? Like, technically, Final Fantasy 2 and 3 were released here or were released in Japan on the NES, but not here. We got 4 and 6 on the Super Nintendo. So it's like, I suppose you could stretch the bounds of this.
No, I wouldn't,
but
because we're American gamers. We are
so limited. You're talking strictly American.
We're limited to
releases.
only the American titles that we had access to.
Okay.
So I don't think you should dive into the weeds of like imports and. I mean, granted, Goonies 1 came out on the Nintendo in Japan, but we didn't get it here. So I mean, you can't.
Super Nintendo, that's a good pick. That's a good pick, because you're right. It was just before that ugly era of graphics with the PlayStation. And
well, it was before. A lot of the
yeah.
stuff was still 2D, because they were still doing... everything was 2D.
But they dabbled with that Mode 7 to make it that pseudo 3D
but you missed that awkward... like first steps between like trying to get into 3D and still being stuck in the 2D world. So I think honestly it really was like the best step up farther, but there's so many good games.
Oh, Paul's wrong.
That's fine.
Well, what's your pick, Kevin?
It's not the best step up. The best step up was between PS1 and PS2.
You think so?
Yeah. Graphic wise, that was the best jump.
Oh, no. What I'm saying, though, is that I think it was a really good, you still, like...
Oh, you're just talking in general step
In general,
up. Okay.
a general step up. Not,
okay.
oh, God, no. PS1 to PS2, I agree with you.
Okay.
I think that...
Sorry, the way...
I think, graphically speaking, the step up from PS1 to PS2 is the most notable and the one that probably is the most underrated of all step-ups.
I would say so.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know a lot of people even now are complaining about how PS4 to PS5 really isn't that big of a difference.
It's really not the same. And PS2 to PS3 is really not as big a step as people think. It's just that...
Not really.
It's
not
just
really.
you really... It was more so in the way that TVs displayed graphics.
Yeah.
It was 1080 TVs versus whatever it was 720s beforehand.
Yeah, I didn't say PS2, I think
That's probably 720.
Because, I mean, you look at some of those...
I don't even know if it was that.
You look at some of those graphics on games like Silent Hill 2 and Rule of Rose, they look amazing. And games that you could probably re-release on the PlayStation 3, and the graphics would look just as good on those new systems as it did on the old system.
Well, what did S-Video... Because with S-Video...
PS2 was 480i and 480p.
Even with the S-Video connection?
Yup.
Wow, because I know you could play it without the S-Video, and that made a huge difference, actually, the S-Video connector.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, honestly, the step up from PS2 to PS3 was mainly just because of the fact that TVs had really kind of gotten better outputs and better graphics. I mean, it was a better display. It wasn't necessarily the game itself that was, better.
So then what was PS3 then? Because that wasn't necessarily...
720.
That was
720 and 1080, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say select 1080, because not a lot.
Not a lot.
I know
it's
more
like
early
720.
PS3 was more
It's-
720.
It's like saying, like, current, like, the PS4 and stuff were 4K. Yeah, on a technicality, by, like, upscaling or sampling or checkerboard and stuff like that, yeah, they were 4K, but they're not real 4K.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a good point, actually. So, anyway, Kevin, what was your pick?
See,
You and I are in that weird area, because Paul's not much RPG guy, but his, I mean, he does have very good points, and his points are very valid. But we look at it more from the, I would say, the RPG
Not
aspect.
just that. Anything that's on Super Nintendo, like, okay, so for me, I'm torn between PS2 or honestly PS4 era.
Really, that recent?
Yeah.
Oh, I could see that.
Because there's a lot of good games that are like the more recent stuff. But like PS2 had, like, if you wanted racing games, there were great racing games. You wanted good sports games, there were good sports games. You wanted RPGs, there were a ton of RPGs on PS2.
I know Vanderhoff and I had a discussion about that once, of how most people think like the golden age of RPGs is
PS1 usually, or
Super
Super
Nintendo. Is Super
But it's
Nintendo,
not.
but no,
I
if
don't
you think
think
about
so.
it, PS1 and PS2 era are kind of almost tied for, like, that's when RPGs really fucking launched.
PS1 would tie the Super Nintendo, PS2 surpasses it.
I think you're right. I
think, yeah, PS1 might have some of the more like Super Nintendo PS1 have some of the more iconic ones. I mean, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 3.
Final Fantasy 7.
Then you have Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy like 8, 9.
Yeah.
But then like PS2, RPGs just took the next best step. Like the presentation was able to actually do what they wanted to do.
Yeah, you could pull off what the vision was,
Yeah.
as opposed to like graphic limitations.
And then, like, you wanted, like, action games, they have Zelda-style games. They have hack and slash, like, the Muso, so the Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors games. They got racing, sports, puzzle games, like, so, like, PS2, if you have, like, a certain particular want of gaming, there's something there.
Yeah, PS2 was a catch-all.
But then, like, PS4, like, it's kind of the same. There's less RPGs now, especially like turn-based ones, if that's sort of your thing.
Yeah.
But the growth in every other way, like, there are amazing, like, superhero games and stuff like that, where that style, like, the bigger open world games that you couldn't really quite do back on PS2 and stuff, but you could do it on the more recent hardware without it, being crap. So I don't know. I'm leaning more towards PS2.
Yeah.
Just because there is I would say there is a lot more there than there is on the the modern stuff, but
Yeah. I mean, it goes to show you, like, because I'm torn between PS1 and PS2. As much as I love the Genesis and Super Nintendo's, got a special place too, and Nintendo, like, PlayStation 1 and 2 were like that was it. Like, that was the crux.
To be honest,
right there.
that
And I'm still
PS1
discovering games that I love on those
I think
systems.
PS1 is that turning point where, like, yeah, Super Nintendo and stuff, like, there were most people still on the outside were, video games are for kids. Video games are for kids.
Yeah.
PS1 was that first, like, real jump where it's like,
It's not just for kids.
it's not for kids. You get the horror games. You get, like, stuff like Metal Gear Solid.
Well,
where it's a heavy story.
Metal Gear Solid, I actually just recently played through it again.
Really?
And, yeah.
Wow.
And I do not give that game the credit that it gets, because that was
gorgeous.
a cinematic display.
yeah.
That was almost more of an interactive movie.
And they didn't pull any punches as far as, like, toning down the story.
Yeah, no,
It is a very deep story.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, Kojima had, like, he's got a bit of a weird side in his storytelling and stuff, but his stories are, like, they're deep. They'll make you think about stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Which, as much as we criticize the later Solid games,
Yeah.
they're very good, like,
or even stuff like
cinematically.
Death Stranding.
Yeah.
and, like, to me, it seemed like he went more artsy with the later games, but like, and they got really, really weird because of it.
Like,
but I think it's because he wasn't held back by technology anymore.
Like that one scene, I don't remember which Metal Gear Solid it was. The one where you're going down the river.
Two.
And
No,
it was at 3.
That's Snake Eater. That's after you're fighting the
guy who you're like hallucinating or something.
Yeah.
And like as
everyone you've killed shows up in the river.
Floats down the river. The bodies float down the river. So if you kill nobody comes down the river.
Oh.
It's just really like it's one of those things that's really fucking cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's nice.
It kind of reminds you of like the Psycho Mantis stuff or
The stuff from Metal Gear Solid 2 where
I will
Campbell...
say,
Yeah.
I will say that segment is a little boring
a little bit
because it's a little longer than it should be. But
Yeah, another scene that really got me with that kind of that one scene in is it Arkham Asylum where you fight Scarecrow?
Yeah.
That was some cool shit.
Oh, yeah.
That
Where
was
you
probably
go in-
my favorite part of
where
that
you
game.
go into the morgue, there's only one
Yeah.
way out, and you go out the door, and then you're in that same
Morgue.
general...
Yeah.
Because that scene played out exactly the way that the game and like the game developers probably intended, like,
You to go, "What the
for
fuck?"
my reaction,
Yeah.
like wait a minute, I think I just went out the wrong door, and then
Or-
slowly thinking, wait a minute,
when
there
it
was only
glitches
one
and does the
door.
opening cinematic again, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, did the game just fuck up?
Yeah.
Like that, the whole Scarecrow segment was fucking incredible.
it was incredible.
But you're right, like
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid. I mean, it does, but at the same time, it's still like underrated in my opinion, especially the GameCube.
and I
or
think
the GameCube version.
the Twin
But
Snakes.
that version is also very different from the
Right,
PS1
right.
game. So
But I think that and why I'm still torn between PS1 and Super Nintendo. See, I love a lot of the iconic titles on the Super Nintendo, and there's so much fun to be had. But I think PlayStation 1 had a lot more they explored a lot more series ideas where you had the games like Metal Gear Solid, which told us like the story was first and foremost, and gameplay was actually more of like a second afterthought.
Yeah.
You had survival horror that started on the PlayStation.
Resident Evil.
Granted,
There were technically
maybe
some
it started
before,
on the
but-
Nintendo, but only in Japan because
Yeah.
they didn't give us
Right.
that. They didn't give us that on the Super Nintendo, like First Fear.
Clock Tower.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't. Yeah, that's First Fear.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they didn't give us that. It's our first experience into it was on the PlayStation with Resident Evil.
I mean, I suppose depending on how loose you want to go with the term survival horror,
no,
Sweet
no.
Home.
Well,
'Cause-
no, Sweet Home was Japan
like-
too, but
Right.
because
Friday
technically
the 13th.
no stuff like Zombies Ate My Neighbors. You're item managing. You are still limited in your.
I've never considered that a survival horror. Just
I know,
because
but,
it's
like,
too,
that's
too
why-
cutesy.
That's why I said it depends on how much you
Yeah, I
want to blur.
suppose.
I mean, don't they kind of isn't Haunted House for the Atari kind of considered survival
They
horror?
consider it now survival horror, but I don't think so.
No.
I honestly would not consider that what we know as survival horror today.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, you had that. You had the Metroidvania that really kind of took off with Castlevania
Night?
Symphony of the Night. I mean, there's so
There
many.
are really good ones on PS2 though.
But RPGs really came into their own with Final Fantasy VII. And so, I mean, there was so many landmark titles for that system as well, too, where they really explored a lot more of the genres and a lot more
I don't
of
know.
That's a tough
what
choice.
basically led to the game styles of PlayStation 2 and on.
Yeah, you're right.
But PS2, even with like the Shin Megami games, they
Nocturne,
they
Digital Devil.
dwarf what Final Fantasy was doing on PS1.
Right.
Yeah.
They are a much better told story usually. They're harder, so a lot of people don't get into them because of that.
Especially-
but there's also much bigger variety in them. Look at Nocturne versus Digital Devil. Look at
Both games are hard as shit.
Then look at those compared to what's the one where you play as the police, the cop, the Ryuden or whatever.
Strange Journey.
No.
The cop.
Yeah.
Strange Journey was the
That was
3DS one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something.
Or the
What do you-
DS one, I'm sorry.
Plays the cop. Oh, something Raidu versus Soulless Army. Yeah. I know which ones you're talking about. There was two of them.
Okay, it's Devil Summoner.
Yeah, Devil Summoner.
Because like even those, they like core gameplay. Yeah, you're always RPGs play like RPGs. There's no
Right.
getting away with that. But like the style of game between each of those is so vastly different than like Final Fantasy VII to Final Fantasy VIII. While it's got a slight different aesthetic, it's still Final Fantasy.
Right.
So,
But see, that's... Yeah, I didn't even think about that, too. Like, you mentioned Symphony of the Night, and because... God, that's a tough choice. I'm almost leaning more towards PS1, I think.
I mean, you had Wild Arms, Brigandine, Valkyrie Profile, so I mean, you had a lot of landmark... Suikoden, you had a lot of landmark
Suikoden 1 and
RPGs.
2.
You had Resident Evil. You had Silent Hill. So I mean, you had the landmarks
Clock
of
Tower.
and Clock Tower. You had the landmarks of survival horror.
Fatal Frame was PS2.
Yeah, that was PS2.
you had
a lot of like fighting games that really defined the genre in that era. You had X-Men versus Street Fighter. You had even the Marvel vs. Capcom 1 came out on the PlayStation. So I mean, but you started off the whole Capcom Versus series on the PlayStation 1. So I mean, and then you balance it out with fun games that were so unique, like Parappa the Rapper or Oddworld, which was such an oddball
Oddworld,
game, but it was so clever.
I loved
way that-
Oddworld as a kid. There was something just the graphics of Oddworld. I remember blew me away as a child. Like that shit looked so incredible. Even though the game was hard as shit.
Yeah,
and I was not good at it.
Yeah.
But the game was it was beautiful. Even Oddworld 2 to a lesser degree, because the game got kind of weird. But yeah, that's oof.
So I mean, there's
That's
a lot
tough.
of landmark games on that system.
I think I'm gonna end up having to go PS1. Because I would have Saga Frontier, Symphony
Yes,
of the
you would.
Night. I would have
Saga
even,
Frontier 2. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
Saga
want,
Frontier
that was
2.
on PS1.
Both Vandal Hearts games. I mean, yeah, that's a really tough choice.
like,
That's a really
it
tough
is
choice.
tough, but
I think overall, for the rest of my life, I think I would end up having to go PS1. Damn.
Wow, I actually convinced him.
Well, I was
Wow.
PS2, but I think I have more memories and
Enjoyment.
just enjoyment
Yeah.
out of PS1 era.
until
you
you
were
actually
just-
start playing it,
because you
and
were
you're
still-
like, oh, they're ugly.
No, because you were still exploring. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you were seeing things for the first time. When I jumped from Super Nintendo to PlayStation, I thought, oh my god, graphics can't get better than this. Watching the opening cinema from Soul Blade, I'm just like, oh my god, is this like, this is a real game? Like, holy cow.
Well, we went Genesis to Saturn. So like even that jump was fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah,
like
sure.
our first game for the Saturn was Knights because that was the pack-in.
Yeah.
So it's like it blew you away. You know. Then we had Dark Savior and Guardian Heroes and shit like that. So it's like, damn, that's
Yeah.
good. That's a good one. So there we go. That's what we got. Super Nintendo man over here, PS2 man, PS1. Wonder what other people would say. Well, like
It depends.
I wonder what-
My guess is it's going to depend on your age range.
That, and I think it's honestly, nostalgia is going to play a bigger factor into your decision
probably right.
than just what's on the system itself.
You don't
See,
think the
I didn't-
discovery, like my niece, she's I don't recall how old she is right now. 15?
15 or 16.
14, 15? I don't remember how old she is. But looking at it from her perspective, is she would discover all these games and just kind of see where things came from. I wonder if she would have the attention span to really kind of play like Symphony of the Night or something. You know what I mean?
Symphony of the Night, you probably, because it's as
more
fast as
action-heavy.
you want to go.
Yeah, and she's pretty into RPGs, but well, sort of, I guess, because some of them elude her. Like I remember I got her Tales of Vesperia one year, and I don't think she played it much. Not quite that heavy, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm curious what other people would pick. So there you go. Leave a comment on YouTube or whatever, and say what your favorite system would be.
Yeah, see, and when I was doing my decision, I tried to not let nostalgia
Yeah.
blind me towards what I'd pick.
Because even like PS3 was huge for me.
Because, to be honest, if you take nostalgia out of things, most people, if you go back and objectively look at stuff, it's not as good as you remember. Period. I don't care what people say. Nostalgia has a way of blinding you to the way things really are. Like, your big hang-up, PS1, has always been fucking ugly. Always.
Depends on the game.
The vast majority, especially of the early titles, are fucking ugly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the second hand, like, towards the end, like, around when Final Fantasy 8, 9, stuff like that started coming out, the graphics were definitely better. But they're still ugly, blocky games, or, the worst case, they're tank controls.
Yeah, for survival horror and
stuff
things
like that.
Yeah.
It's just like...
See, I like the tank controls.
I know you do.
Yeah, it's because you're a freaking weird masochist.
Good old reliable.
Why anybody thought that was a good idea? Tank controls.
Because it was meant to
it's
manipulate...
consistent.
It's meant to
Consistency.
always be controlling no matter which way they made the camera look, but it didn't work out the way it's supposed to. But I just... It's one of those things where, yeah, if you take out nostalgia and stuff like that...
Oh no, I know those games are ugly. That's why, like, N64, as much as I do have nostalgia for it, that is a horridly ugly system.
It's an ugly system.
Yeah,
that's why
even early, yeah, like you said, like Tomb Raider,
because
fucking hideous.
Yeah, but that's why. Well, Tomb Raider 2 actually looked really good, but Tomb Raider 1, looked absolutely bad. But
Metal Gear Solid, even like
No,
the
see, Metal
faces
Gear
are
Solid-
fucking horrid.
yeah, but Metal Gear Solid I could handle because it was like the story was so gripping that I didn't even need to see like what the characters looked like or what
right.
I was looking at. But I mean, games on the Nintendo 64 like GoldenEye, which is just a universally beloved and classic game, but if you play it on an N64 now, the game is almost borderline unplayable just because of how it looks.
That control style for first-person shooters was just bad.
Well, yeah,
That
they
you
were
came
still...
to a dead stop when you aim. Yeah, it was bad.
Not having two analog sticks, like adding the second analog stick, especially for shooters, was a huge step
Yeah,
up.
but they were still. I mean,
You think PlayStation for that with the DualShock?
Well, yeah, but
They're
N64
not the
was
first that had two.
For consoles,
yeah, because
it was, I think.
N64 was the first one that actually had an analog joystick.
Yeah,
and
but it only had the one.
Yeah, it only had the one in the middle,
Yeah.
and then PlayStation was the first one that had both of them on the DualShock.
That was cool.
Yeah,
I remember that was a big thing back in
and
the
the
day.
DualShock was basically the precursor for PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
So
As far as I can recall, console-wise, DualShock was the first one to have the twin sticks.
Yes.
Didn't Saturn technically come out before PlayStation?
It
it
did,
did,
but I
1994,
can't
but it
recall
never
a
had
controller
it
that had
never
DualShock.
it never had a DualShock. It didn't even have one joystick.
No, not really. It was all
I mean,
D-pad.
what was
Other than the 3D controller.
Yeah,
that
I was going to
only,
say, but that was only mainly it was built for Knights.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
because it came packed in with Nights into Dreams.
It was hard
Yeah.
to use with anything else because it was just a goofy ball. Like, it was
Yeah.
very strange.
And
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
yeah, and honestly, I don't even think did the original Xbox controller even have dual analog sticks?
The Duke? I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
'cause
when
Halo
it first,
did.
But when it first came out,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
believe so.
Okay.
Because wasn't Halo one of the not launch titles, but Halo was early.
it was
Xbox.
very early. It was very early.
And
Xbox,
I remember
yeah.
that was a big tout. Was
Oh, okay.
the dual sticks.
Oh, okay. But still, I mean, that came out in 2001, and so the DualShock analog controller was 1998.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Because I always remember seeing it with Didn't you need it for the Resident Evil Director's Cut, the DualShock, or no?
you didn't. It was just compatible with it.
I thought you needed it.
Yeah, no. I don't think that there was any game that it was required that you had it, but it's just there was like the Resident Evil 2 was they specifically made a DualShock edition.
Okay, yeah.
And so I actually
remember that.
I've got that one.
Yeah. But yeah, that was it's kind of interesting. Well, speaking of PlayStation, we'll move on to our next segment. This doesn't affect you so much, Paul.
This is about RPGs, isn't it?
No.
Oh, good.
It is the closing of the PlayStation 3, the Vita stores, where you can no longer buy games. They announced
PSP as well.
And PSP. I thought PSP was already... I don't know, they weren't. PSP was still active.
Yep.
But they're closing those 3 stores. And it's caused quite a stir in the gaming community.
To me, it doesn't... I mean, how long did people think that those stores were going to be open?
That was kind of my thought. It's like, you really thought these games, that these servers, these things were going to be just forever open? Like,
and that has always been the crux of why I feel like, okay, when people say digital versus physical media, I love physical, because even if everything goes away, your physical disc is still in your possession. It's still in your collection. You can pop it in whenever you want.
That also depends on the era of system you're talking about.
Well, it does. But I'm saying,
because anything PS3 or later, some of them literally require the day one updates to be able to play.
Well, some of them.
Some do. It's more prevalent now.
Or the other thing is, like,
I would say late, or PS4 to PS5. PS3 not so much, except for that one, what was this, some Tony Hawk game needed a patch, a day one patch.
I think it was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5.
Maybe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely more prevalent now in PS4 to 5, especially since you need an established connection to something. Yeah. It's got to connect to somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Once those servers are gone in, 40 years? Mm-hmm. How much of these libraries are going to be unplayable anyway? Well,
that's what I mean, is like, okay, so you had a game that you downloaded as a digital download. Like, I mean, how long do you think you have that for? You're basically renting it. You don't own it. You are renting it for however long those servers are around to provide it to you. Yeah. That's it.
Depending, because, like, I know when certain other digital stores closed, they only closed the shop front, so you can't buy new stuff. But if you already own it, you can re-download it.
You can still play it.
So it's not. They're literally. It's not like the games are going away. They are just closing the shop to be able to buy new stuff because it's not worth the cost to keep upgrading the system.
Yeah. No,
so
I get that.
But so if I already have something on my PSP or my Vita, as long as I have my PSP or Vita and it can still connect to Sony servers, I can still download my game back.
So to me, it doesn't bother me because years ago, I already realized all of this stuff. So it's like, okay, so in the case of so they had remade Turtles in Time.
Yeah.
And they put it on the PlayStation Network.
Actually,
and maybe even the Xbox Live, whatever it was. When I first got my PlayStation, I was going through the store and I saw that they had reshelled, and so you could download a preview of the game, which is I think the entire first level of it. And for the longest time I had that preview and I just would not I wouldn't pay the $10 for the game. And I finally was like, you know what?
I'm finally gonna buy it.
I haven't played a game in a long time. Like, you know what? I think I want to buy this now. So I went to the store and it wasn't there. And I thought, wait, what? And so then
That's when the license got revoked, right?
I did a Google search, and it was because, once the sale to Nickelodeon took place, Ubisoft could no longer, by law, sell it. And so they had to take it off. And Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 did the same thing, sort of. Well, no. I don't know why they did this, but they released downloadable content on the game that had basically, it was a character pack like Juggernaut and some other characters, but then they also had bonus games like expansion games, basically,
Yeah,
like different scenarios that you could
Oh,
play.
the Danger Room stuff.
Yeah,
isn't it?
kind of like the Danger Room
Okay.
packs.
Okay.
And so they
I forgot
had
about
them.
those.
They had them on the PlayStation Store, but they said like they released them in. It was like just I may be wrong about this, but I'm just gonna say as an example, they released them in like beginning of December.
I didn't say
And
November, I think is when it
or
was.
something like
it was
that.
Thanksgiving.
But then they said that they're pulling them from the store in January, so get them now. And it's like, well, why would you be pulling it? And so I got all of the stuff. I bought the Juggernaut. I bought the Danger Room packs, and it was gone in like middle of January. And I thought, it's basically just like printing money. Like, why would you?
Yeah.
Why? That doesn't make sense. So then I realized, like, okay, I mean, that was kind of a precursor of, well, eventually the PlayStation Store is going to shut down. It's just not going to provide anymore. And so I was already it doesn't bother me because I was already expecting it years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that this was going to happen.
Well, the biggest issue with that people are having is in terms of like game preservation, because how many games are on the PS3 store that or the Vita that just don't have physical releases?
Yeah,
so these
but
games
it's-
will end up lost in time because
I don't think they will.
But
they're not available anymore.
You do realize Sony, I think it's the Sony Entertainment, the PlayStation sub-brand, they have a library of every game that's ever been published on their system.
Yes, but who is going to look back and be like, Outland, let's put that back on the PlayStation Store?
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no.
PS3
Yeah, but
area.
that's the thing is, like...
That's what I'm saying. It's
They're
there's
archived. They're just not going to be publicly archived.
so who? But that's in terms of game preservation, people are referring to being accessible.
yeah,
You know
no,
what I mean?
no, and I understand.
Well, then at
that.
some point, Nintendo stuff is no longer going to be accessible
Well,
too.
And
Well, they
I-
all are. They're all going that way.
Yeah.
No, even like NES. Eventually, these carts will degrade. Unless if you like, what is it? Hermetically seal them to where they're airtight, so nothing can get to them. They will eventually degrade. How many Nintendos do we have where like the pin connection is bad now?
That's
Yeah, but
also due to
that's
poor
friction.
care.
Yeah.
But that's still
Like, I mean,
that's inevitable with physical media.
You're still able to play Atari games. How many years after the fact?
Because
now?
they put
almost
them-
30 or 40
Yeah,
years.
because they convert them to ROM. And
No,
stuff.
I'm talking.
Oh, you're
like,
talking about
actual
physical cards. Oh yeah, the cards
So
work just
they
fine.
probably
yeah.
don't degrade as fast as you would think.
No.
It depends entirely on how they're stored.
Exactly, and the
But-
care that they're stored, and
But like
exactly.
yeah, like even like your PlayStation discs. I've actually burned a ring into some of my PlayStation discs.
Yeah, but you're the exception, not the rule. Mm-hmm. You play games.
You'd
for
be shocked. There are far more people like me that play games than like you.
I don't buy that.
Have you seen like average playtime for like
don't
Call of
buy
Duty
you.
players or even like hell even like Diablo?
Call of Duty, that's digital stupid. Don't be ridiculous.
But like have you seen like average playtime for like a lot of gamers is more than your average playtime?
Oh, I completely doubt it because I also have a life. So I mean,
Fuck you!
So my big thing would be, okay, people are worried about preserving games.
yes.
I'm gonna be kind of a nihilist in terms of this mindset. but-
Everything will die.
Well, no, not even just that, but it's, do all games even need to
No.
be saved?
No.
Do they
See,
need to be preserved? I mean,
That's why-
there are certain games that are only applying to, like, there's a client base or a fan base that is so tiny that it's, are you really going to try to save these games for 0.01% of the population?
Is someone out there really hunting for Normie's Beach Babe-orama?
Well, guess what? This guy got it.
Well, and that's
But exactly, like,
Yeah. But
that's-
who even remembers what that game is? Let alone we need to preserve it.
I've actually made that argument for like towards the Library of Congress for books and movies. There are certain books and movies that just do not need to be preserved, but are preserved forever now.
No.
They're garbage. They're not worth the medium that they're printed on, but they're still archived. Gaming is the same way. Like, I'd say probably somewhere between like 50 and 65% of all games ever produced are fucking worthless.
For the most part. I mean, yeah.
If we're talking, I'm not talking like just particular. I'm from the very beginning of video games till now. Somewhere between like that 50 to 65% of games, they're garbage. They are not worth even touching.
Even just narrow the scope to just the NES library, 678. How many of those games are really worth it?
And then it gets worse as you go on. Because
Yeah.
do you remember the Xbox 360 store? How many times did you and I go through there and see all those self-published fucking games that
They're just stupid.
They're worthless.
They're embarrassing.
Well, and that's why...
and those get preserved.
Well, and it's funny because, I mean, I just recently saw a video about, like, gatekeeping.
Right.
Like, in certain industries, and is it a good thing? And I said...
It can be.
Exactly. It can be. Because, I mean, if you really think about it...
Standards need to be in place.
If you think about it, Nintendo they gate kept the system. They made it so that publishers only had 5 chances to make a really good game per year.
They also lost lawsuits because of it.
They lost lawsuits?
Because of stuff like the Game Genie and stuff like that. Nintendo lost the lawsuits against
Oh,
those.
but that's because they basically they what is that oh god, what is that called when they're reverse engineered? Galoob reverse engineered it. And they basically that's why they lost it, is because they said you can't have the monopoly on these things. So Galoob got away with it. That's not related. But publishers literally had 5 chances.
Oh, you're talking about the ones for the official seal and
Yeah,
stuff. Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
So
you're talking about the limit. Yeah.
Yes, the limit. That they basically were gatekeeping so that publishers had to put out the best of the best that they could, so that they didn't get this glut that basically is what destroyed the Atari 2600.
Right.
And that's what prevented shit from like Cyberpunk 2077 happening.
Well, exactly. Is that and so, I mean, there was a lot of stuff where basically Atari 2600, they didn't care if other like third-party companies created their games, because they said, okay, this is a really good thing. If people know how to create them,
The more choices, the better.
Well, the more choices, the better, because if they have a good game, then it's going to sell our systems. And so we're going to make some money. If it's a bad game, well, who cares? Because
it's not our name.
It's not our name.
Yeah.
We didn't pay for it, so we're not losing anything. So you know what? Let them do what they want to do. But then you had all of this glut of shit on the system that basically pretty much crumbled the entire video game industry as a result of it. Well, E.T. was...
It's its own
Those
problem.
That's a special circumstance.
Those were other
special circumstances.
Those were other issues that caused that destruction. That was just greed.
Yeah,
that
like
did
Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a fucking almost unplayable mess and nonsensical as far as Atari games go. But then again, which ones were?
Well, but either way, I mean, it's so Nintendo knew that gatekeeping was necessary in order to do that. Well, now that we are in the age of digital consumption, where anybody can create a game and put it on a digital platform, you're now starting to get back into that age of Atari, where we don't care what you put on the system, we'll sell it. It's basically becoming a repository, like almost like a YouTube.
It actually, I would say it applies to more than just games, because how many movies have we scrolled by that are like, how did this even get produced?
That's true.
I could pull up books on Amazon right now that like you'd be like, that's an entire subgenre of like, what the fuck?
Anybody can self-publish now too on Amazon.
And it's one of those things where it's like, at certain points, some sort of practical standard does need to be, hey, this is the minimum line you have to meet of what you before you can do something.
I suppose it depends how you define the gatekeeping too, like you said.
Yeah.
Gatekeeping for standards is fine.
Yes.
But gatekeeping in a form of, if you're look at
like comics versus movies,
or I'm thinking like Destiny in a weird way, gate kept in a goofy way, where players would flat out kick you out of teams if you weren't rolling their particular setup.
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
WoW
Yep.
would do the same thing, where people would literally prevent you from playing.
Yeah.
That kind of gatekeeping can completely destroy
same thing
a
with
hobby.
fan base
Absolutely.
gatekeeping can too, where it's
Yes.
you don't know X, Y, and Z, therefore you're not a real fan. That sort of shit.
Yeah,
like
that's not. Yeah,
Sadly,
no.
it's
that's
that
prevalent
happens.
too because
that
of the
happens
internet.
too,
So.
more often than it needs to, or that it should ever be.
like I'm freshly on Twitter. I finally started my own Twitter like a few months ago.
It's not worth
and
it.
I've noticed a lot of things like socially and stuff, and it still amazes me that, like, men will gatekeep women out of gaming. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I see
Like,
all the time.
I've seen a lot of things where it's like these women. There's one in particular. She's a huge Final Fantasy nut. Like, she's almost 40 years old. She's been playing Final Fantasy almost her whole fucking life. Like, she just loves it. But she still gets men, like, mansplaining fucking Final Fantasy to her. And she's like, I know more than you do. But because I'm a woman, they assume I don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, that shit still, like, I'm still like, really? People are still doing that right now?
Oh, it
Like,
goes every direction.
like, I remember when we were kids growing up, finding a woman or a girl who played games was a rarity. You were like, oh shit.
It was a unicorn.
Because we were always brought up, like, if you play video games, you're a fucking nerd.
You're a loser.
You're a loser. You're never gonna get a girl. So, like, that kind of shit was so, like, into us. But, like, by the time I'd say we were in high school, like, that mentality kind of fell off.
No, even in high school, it was bad.
Because I remember a lot of girls talking about, like, playing D&D and shit. So, like, that kind of...
Those were the exception. That wasn't the norm.
I suppose.
Yeah, that was definitely
Because,
not
like,
the norm.
anytime, even amongst, like, the group of people I usually hung out with, bringing up comic books or, like, even, like, old movies, we're talking, like, black and white era movies, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're a nerd. Shut the fuck up. Get out of here.
I say it started when we, like, just about our tail end of high school, 2002, 2003-ish, and then when nerd culture kind of started ramping up
Well, nerd
and
culture,
becoming
nerd culture became mainstream. It's no longer nerd culture.
No. But that kind of shifted the ideal that, women can play. I bet you we would have been surprised how many women actually played games as kids, because
I know quite a few.
even for girls, like, video games were looked at something that's not your realm. Like, you don't belong there.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I don't know why this part of the topic got on, but it's just something that kind of amazes me.
Because I talked about gatekeeping, and I was using it as a way to explain that we are now, it's basically the Wild West again, because developers can create a game who have no history of creating games, may not even know how to create games, but they are the ones who are trying to make the next Minecraft or the next
Cave
Fortnite
story.
or the next cave story. Like, they're trying to these
Shovel
game,
Knight.
Yeah, well, these game creators, well, Shovel Knight, they knew a thing or two about nostalgia and what to do. But you take a game like Minecraft, where it's literally just pixelated cubes and you build stuff.
It looks like PS1, yeah.
That's it. But
PS1.
Apparently it became this huge juggernaut
Microsoft
phenomenon.
bought it for over $1 billion.
It's no different than when comic books in the early 80s, Eastman and Laird, when they created TMNT, you had a glut of other people trying to make anthropomorphic characters because they thought, oh, anybody can do this. There was like something, black belt hamsters, like mutated black belt hamsters or something like that was another one. I'm dead serious. I have number one of that issue. Everybody was trying to capture lightning in a bottle that Eastman and Laird did with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it kicked off the entire. For the most part, it kicked off the independent comic book creation.
Yeah,
like. You didn't have anything that was outside of Marvel or DC, but now all of a sudden everybody was publishing comic books, and they were trying to say, hey, you know what, let's throw all this crap on the wall and see what sticks to it. Yeah. And then that's what we're going to do, and eventually we're going to create something that's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's going to be a big success. Well, that's what game developers are doing now, hoping that they're going to capture that.
Yeah.
So, honestly, if you do not preserve 98% of what is out there right now, people aren't going to care. It's not.
You're right.
It's not a big deal. But if there are certain things, if they are so inclined to say no, we have to preserve games, then there should come like a vote of saying, okay, if you had 100 games from the PS3 era or PS4 era, like these
that's hard.
These games or something like that, which ones would you choose? Or we can only preserve 1,000 games, digital, whatever it is. You guys choose, and the most that gets the most votes, those are the ones that we'll preserve. But you don't actually have to preserve everything, because there's just not.
Well, and
There's no reason to.
That would be That's a real Sisyphus. Right
Well,
there.
but what I'm saying though is that I'm talking only in terms of the digital only games.
I know.
Because obviously, like physical games that were made by companies and stuff like that, obviously those are already preserved because you've got the disc, you've got the code in there. But these games that are digital only, I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of crap on there. So not all of them need to be saved.
Right, but I mean, just that system would be impossible.
Well,
'cause, I mean, that'd be like take all of the Pokemon that are out now, almost 1,000, and choose 100. Like,
well,
that's almost impossible because every Pokemon statistically is somebody's favorite.
Well, and that's the thing, is that you cannot please everybody.
No.
There has never been a point where you can please everybody. That's why, and they still haven't got it in Hollywood yet, is they're trying to make movies based on the I don't want to say the lowest common denominator, but the greatest good. They want to apply their movie to everybody so that they have the biggest audience that they possibly can. But essentially, you need to pick who your core audience is and go to them.
Because you're going to alienate people. Like, actually, in a weird way, Star Trek is kind of a good example of that.
Yeah.
With I don't know how much you know about like Star Trek Discovery and stuff like that.
I haven't watched any of
So
it,
like Star Trek ended up taking this evolution of, you had like the original series, then you had Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and all that shit.
Yep.
It's like they were all encapsulated bottle episodes where it's like, yes, there might be a small story here and there, but like basically you could pick and choose an episode and watch.
Yeah, there were one-off episodes.
They're my Creature of the Weeks. They're Scooby-Doos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that fan base of Star Trek still yearns for that time. So, like, Star Trek Discovery is more cinematic. It basically became Star Wars for Star Trek fans, but Star Trek fans hate it.
But it also lost everything that made Star Trek Star Trek.
Right, but
it's not necessarily because it's a constant brand, like a constant narrative.
Right.
It's because it lost all of the charm.
Oh, I was getting to that.
Yeah,
yes.
It's
not just that.
It's not the continuous story, because Next Generation and especially Deep Space Nine,
it was
not because there's entire like seasons of Deep Space Nine where if you just pick one episode, go in, you're done. You're not going to watch anything else beyond that because you won't know what is going on.
Discovery, when they did it, it was the same thing with like the movies, like Into Darkness and all that shit, where they burn themselves out.
Abrams did it?
They basically tried to become Star Wars. They want to appeal to the Star Wars crowd.
Yeah.
Action, drama, this dark shit, and that's never been what Star Trek's about.
Yeah.
So when they made that conscious decision for Discovery to hit those notes to try to pull in the Star Wars crowd, you basically destroyed your entire previous fan base because that's not what they want. And so you're right, you can't please everybody.
No, you can't.
To me, the safer move would be to preserve the audience you have. The ones that have been with you since the original series, Next Generation. Why would you take that drastic turn? Yes, I suppose you do need something different because even since Deep Space Nine, like even Voyager, it started to fall off because you had over a decade of the same shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's why that's why
Deep Space Nine was so fantastic, was because
Deep Space Nine was very different from the previous Star Trek series.
It was darker, but it was also smart in the way that it did.
Well, not just that. It's Deep Space Nine. Well, like the original series, TNG, even Voyager. It's a constant move.
Yeah.
We're in place A, we're going to place B, you can do the next thing. Well, Deep Space Nine was like the first station. It was the first major departure in that this is our set location. Occasionally we'll go other places, but this is our location. Yeah. It was the first one to really focus on a set location rather than a moving object.
Yeah, instead of exploring the galaxy, they were exploring
the character drama
because it's.
I mean, granted, there's always been character drama, but
right. But it's usually like if you look at some of the character building or the character arcs in like TNG, it's not that great. Like a lot of them are kind of boring characters.
Depending on what character arcs you pick, because like Riker and Data had great ones, but like Worf was like hit or miss.
I mean, Picard obviously was the only one that really
he
He became Locutus.
he had development because he went from the sort of uptight officer to the
Yeah.
So I mean, and then Riker went from like the boyish, second in command to the we can't do everything that way anymore.
Yeah, I guess.
But I mean, or you get characters like Tashiar where they start having it and then they're like, "Oh, you're dead."
Well, that's because she wanted off the show.
Yeah.
But like you said, you can only do the same thing for so long. It's the same with almost anything.
Yeah.
Like, even Star Wars was the same. It's like, how much can you really do the same? Even though, I suppose Star Wars fans are kind of an odd duck, because they'll bleed anything that has the Star Wars name on it. But
Not everything.
There is a point where it's like, how much can you see the same shit? Like, even when 7 came out, they were like, this is just 4 again.
But that's
no, but that's
because
because they literally did the same story.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I mean, but then it comes back to if you can only do the same thing so many times. There are only the 7 stories you can tell anyways.
Right.
So no matter what story you're telling the same story.
Right. There's only so many things you can change. It's usually setting characters and but the plot's the same.
Yeah, there's only so many variations you can do. So no matter what you're telling, you're always going to be telling the same story.
Right.
So you can pick your favorite story. I guarantee I can go back and find an older version of the exact same story.
Oh, of course.
It might not be as neatly written as modern standards, because that's where changes are.
Oh, of course.
So
I'm not diving into this because I fundamentally disagree with both of you in regards to Star Wars on what you guys are talking about. But there is a whole bigger can of worms that is the reason why 7, 8, and 9 failed.
Oh, no, there's a lot of reasons.
There's a lot of reasons why, but there's also a lot of turmoil that's going on inside of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, there's a lot of inner conflicts.
I want to say that, especially in the case of Star Wars, you had
the biggest.
There was to me there was 3 factors. You had the good part of the fan base, you had the absolute scummy shit part of the fan base, and then you had a 2-part, I suppose it'd be the 4 then, because then you had the part of the company that didn't know what the fuck they were doing, but then you had those people in the company that knew what they were doing, but got overruled. So, you had these 4 factors that all went against everything they were trying to do. So they were fighting both up and downhill at the same time.
Yes, but also you had a lot of stories that they could have told in what ended up becoming legends, because they took all of the old stuff that was canon and decanonized it.
Oh, when Disney took
it.
And see, even that's kind of iffy, because even when the extended universe stuff was canon, there were certain parts of it that George Lucas himself said, this I will accept, this I won't. So there was canon, and then there was George Lucas canon, where he specifically picked certain novel series and stuff he liked that were part of his story. Everything else was someone else's story.
That's why I always...
So the canon has always been fucky since the get-go.
I hate when, things do offshoots that are not part of... If it's an officially released something, it should be part of your story.
But see, that's that's why I like how Marvel and DC do it with the multiverse.
But even that,
because that way I can diverge with this character, but still explore this character. You know what I mean?
I suppose that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because if I want to do Batman, I don't always want to do Batman, because if we stuck with the same thing, we never would have got Batman Beyond.
Right.
We never would have gotten some of these good stories. Probably never would have gotten what was Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that. If they would have stuck to what Batman was, Batman would not be Batman.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, because we'd still have that fucking Adam West.
No, we would still have the original Batman where he ran around with rifles and stuff like that. So
you'd have the goofy Batman.
So without being able to explore stuff, you can't find the new ways to improve your story. But then it's that fine line between improving and destroying.
And that's usually when power shifts happen,
the Marvel
or
statue of I'm making this fine tune. Oop,
Yeah.
I've hit too hard. I've now cracked my statue. It's useless.
Yeah, especially when, like I said, when things change hands.
Yeah,
You know,
and then
you have different visions of how you want things. I mean, look at the movies. You had 2 different directors, I guess, and both of them had their own ideas of what they wanted to do. Well, one played better than the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
And then,
That's a mess.
obviously, fan bases do play a part in it because sometimes certain people just shouldn't have a voice.
It's
a fucky situation all around, so...
You're right. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's the same thing Star Trek fell into, is they tried to appeal to the fans that just want fucking space battles, bitch! Boom! What the fuck? And then the people that just want the philosophy, the Picard diplomacy.
Yeah.
Starfleet was there to not to hurt things, but then Discovery, they just want to blow shit up. Like, it just gets so goofy. And I feel like the later Star Wars it was the same thing. Like, the visions kind of changed. Even
that's why
some wanted to preserve them, some didn't.
That's why with, like, stuff like The Mandalorian, it's definitely going back to the older style while incorporating newer themes into it.
Mandalorian, I will say, that's kind of one I kind of want to watch. You should watch because it seems more intelligent. Yeah. To me, it does. I don't know if I've heard nothing but good things. I don't think anybody's ever complained about anything in The Mandalorian. No, that I know of.
Other than Grogu's too cute.
But like,
he kind of steals the show when he's on screen.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like that would be the one part of Star Wars where I'm like, I can get into this. Yeah. And I mean, Turtles, even this is like kind of the same thing.
Well, it's not the one part. I mean, you played KOTOR, so.
I did like Knights of the Old Republic. I thought those were really cool. And I love the lore of Knights of the Old Republic.
Well, that's legend now. That's not canon anymore.
Of course not. But I mean, it's the same, like, I don't know. That's why,
like I said, that's why that's why I've been quiet, because I think this is an episode unto itself that I just do not want to dive into, because I've got way too much, just too many feelings.
I'm with you on that.
Tied in on this.
Maybe we'll have to do a quickie of us diving into these.
Quickie, 6 hours later.
I want to say our quickies always end up an hour. Yeah. But maybe that's when we'll have to write that idea down. And maybe, because like I said, at one point I do want to watch all of the Star Wars movies, you know, and kind of just have that experience. And I would, hell, any viewpoint's good, because I'm an open book. I'm not bullheaded enough to be like, this is how it has to be. And this is what I think, and no one's gonna change it. Like, I love hearing people's opinions on things.
Yeah.
Like, as much as, or as little as I know about Star Wars, like, I love listening to you two talk about it, because I think that shit's interesting. Even Star Trek, like, I'm not huge into it, but I love listening to people talk about it. That kind of shit interests me. Yeah. So, like, that kind of stuff I love. But,
and that's why you should watch Stargate, because it's the middle ground between the two, and you would like it.
Battlestar Galactica!
Oh, no, fuck Battlestar.
Dune! God, what a hot mess.
I love those books.
Folding space worms.
Hey!
It's goofy.
The spice must flow!
But yes, so...
Well, might as well get to what we were supposed to be talking about.
I mean, PS3 stuff, yeah, we'll close off this idea. Like Paul, I had no illusion that those stores were going to be open forever.
I didn't.
No.
And it's part of what scares me about honest, gaming modern day.
And this is one of the big reasons I am an advocate for emulation, because even with NES and stuff, I'm sorry, the majority of people that might want to play NES games will never be able to have the collection.
No, and they will never spend the hundreds of dollars to have a Panic restaurant.
Yeah.
Or the $1,000.
So sometimes emulation is the best course. That's why I like the NES Mini. That's why I like these mini systems, because it is a good way of preserving your legacy while presenting it to a new audience.
There is something to be said about playing on authentic hardware, though.
Yeah, there are times.
The experience is different, which is it's a weird thing to say. Maybe it's one of those things where it's like you have to experience it yourself, because I know a lot of people who are the same route. They will only emulate stuff because they don't want to spend the money, but it's like there really is something about playing it on the authentic hardware that feels different.
Yes and no, because I mean I can get NES controllers for a computer.
Right,
they
but
feel
they're
the same.
Still different. Remember, that's, I suppose, a different beast, though. Like playing Mario Maker and playing the original different. Mario stuff on it.
That's
even playing Mario All Stars on like Super Nintendo is different.
Oh yeah, it looks different than the original stuff. It was meant to be.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's why, like, for me, like, that sort of stuff is great, especially because at a certain point, hardware just will not exist anymore.
Right.
At some point, you're not going to be able to get replacement parts for your NES. There is a finite resource there. Short of people like literally handcrafting the stuff, it will go away. You don't have a choice on that.
Yeah.
But at least with emulation, the game, the memories, that stuff will always continue on.
Yeah. I suppose that's true.
That's why, like, to me, digital's not this, like, devil to be afraid of.
No, I still think it is.
It's a tool that you have to embrace at some point, because it doesn't matter what you do, it has to happen.
I'm not opposed to, like,
I'm not
afraid of digital. I'm just saying, make no illusions.
Yeah,
if
I
you
agree.
own something digitally, you don't quote unquote own it. You are borrowing it for the duration of its life cycle.
Actually, the funny thing is, this is actually becoming an issue with DVDs. You do realize, even if you buy a DVD, you do not own the movie.
Well, obviously,
They can actually,
own the movie.
you can actually, they can revoke your license on a DVD player.
Huh?
Yep, it's already happened for certain movies that because DVD players need updates and stuff, they can revoke the license for DVDs.
What DVD player needs an update?
There are actually quite a few of them now.
Now?
But like, you can.
I can plug my DVDs into my PS2 and play them.
You can actually lose the license for DVDs though and stuff like that. It's.
I don't quite buy that one.
I don't
buy
that either.
I'll show you the stuff for it.
Well, you can show me all you want, but I don't buy it. If it's not connecting to something, then it's not. I still have it. That would be like saying me plugging my cartridge into my Nintendo. It's going to tell me I can't play it. What's going to tell me? What's going to stop me?
Well, that's different because that's like.
But DVDs are the same thing,
No.
unless your DVD player is a smart DVD player, and I'm using air quotes, that needs an internet connection. Most DVD players don't. You're talking Blu-ray players.
No, even there
There are no DVD players that I've ever had or seen that connected to the
DVD
internet.
players. There are Blu-rays
players.
because what the Blu-rays will do is it will connect to the internet where it will find like the newest
it
releases.
needs the new codecs and stuff like that.
And so that it can advertise like what the newest like Universal movies are, or the newest Legendary Pictures movies are, so that it can advertise
I'll
for
find
their
your stuff and I'll show you.
But-
Yeah, you'll have to, because I don't buy that for a second. But that's kind of why I fear modern gaming, is because when we hit that threshold of all digital, like you said, at some point you're basically just renting these games.
Yep, that's it.
Whereas our NES, our Super Nintendo, our PlayStation 1, 2,
we had ownership.
We can play that at any old time. Power goes out, or not power goes out, but like
power goes out. Good luck
internet
doing
connections
anything.
cut. I can still play all that
I can
shit.
still turn on my TV.
Whereas my PS4, I can't play shit because now it needs to connect to something. So at some point when they turn service off to that PS4 or PS5, I can't play now it's going to be 80% of these games. And that's what gaming is going to evolve into, and that scares me.
Yeah.
Because you're going to lose how many games? Like that terrifies me.
Well, and unfortunately, it makes sense to go digital because you're only selling what people want. You're not producing anything. There's no overhead costs for a case, for an instruction booklet, for any of that stuff. For a physical
booklets
disc.
died a long time ago.
But
they're making a comeback.
But I'm saying
for certain RPGs, but outside of that, they really don't.
But I'm saying though, it's just you don't have to pay that overhead cost for all of the stuff that goes into games, and you're only selling what people want instead of producing 50,000 discs and then risking only selling 30,000 of them.
Yeah.
I also got to point out that they never intended for people to collect.
No, that's true.
Collection has always been an abnormal mindset. It's not the standard.
No, that I know.
Like I know we alluded to like pulp comics. The idea was to read it and throw it away.
Yeah.
Or donate
comics.
it.
Comics were disposable entertainment, basically.
Yeah.
You read it
Like,
and then you got
even
you threw it away.
even the original movies and stuff. They never conceived of selling it to an audience.
Right.
It was, you go to watch it, you do it, you're done. That's it. It's a one and done.
Nobody thought you would ever go to a movie theater and then go out to a Target and buy it.
Yeah.
That was
media
something.
was never intended to be a permanent thing that you hold on to.
I suppose that's true.
Like collection, as much as I know you guys love it, it is still the abnormal minority mindset.
Of course.
So, and like, don't get me wrong, there is a certain aspect of like, yeah, holding it. For me, like books, going to a library or something, like, you smell the physical book degrading, that like wood smell.
Yeah.
There's something about that just, even with my e-reader, as much as I love it, doesn't quite replace for certain books.
Right.
But then there are other times the convenience of being able to just pick it up and read.
I laugh only because I do that with there's certain comic books where when they used to use the newsprint, basically, and I actually just
that yellowing of the page that you can't.
I have a Wizard magazine that I just opened up from the cellophane because it was one that I had that I remember vividly as a kid. It was sealed, and when I opened it up, I just held it up to and I smelled the pages, and I'm just like, oh my god, this smell! I remember this smell, or like
when you were a kid going into the comic shop and you smell
like an old
that.
like an old newsprint comic. Like when I smell it, it literally can transport me into Rockheads when I went there as a kid, and that was what the big whiff was, is that newsprint smell of all the comics that were in there.
Rest in peace, Rockheads.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. So from there, we will. You know what? We'll do. I know it seems goofy, but we'll talk about the last Ronin stuff after the music, after the closing music, because, like I said, it's usually getting into spoilers. So, as much as this is the star of the episode, it's going to be after the closing thing. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know what your memories are of the PS3 area. What console would you choose to play for the rest of your life, and why?
Yeah, let us know what you think about video game preservation, and if it should be done, if it shouldn't be done, what we're losing as a result of not doing it. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah. So hit us up on Facebook.
Hit us up on Twitter.
Go to powertripgaming.tv. Takes you directly to the YouTube channel where you can watch us blast through the 678 cartridge collection of the NES.
You can also watch our side quest material where we play games that aren't the NES.
That's right. PlayStation 1, 2, 3!
I knew that was coming.
If you don't feel like contacting us on Facebook or Twitter, you can always shoot us an email at nespowertrip@gmail.com.
Yes, and next time on Power Trip,
we'll talk about something better.
Yeah.
This is the Powercast.
This is the Powercast. We don't normally...
No, we can still talk about something better.
I mean, we could, yeah.
Next time on the Power Trip Powercast!
We don't have Andy, so we can actually talk about stuff.
Fuck off. Fuck off, boys. So stay tuned after the music for Last Ronin Shiat. Anyway. Alright, so we're back.
Welcome back.
Talking about the second issue, Last Ronin 2, baby.
Yes, spoilers ahead. So hopefully you have read The Last Ronin number 2. If you haven't, you should probably pause this and go ahead and read The Last Ronin number 2.
Read it!
Really good.
Super good.
Really good.
I'm fucking loving it so far.
Yes. Honestly, this series, it's only 2 issues long so far, but it has been like such a gripping story.
It really has. Yeah. If you haven't listened to our first Powercast of Last Ronin,
then why are you here?
Yeah, look up the episode Rollin with the Last Ronin.
Is that what you put?
That's what I named it.
Rollin with the
Last Ronin.
Nice.
Listen to that episode. We talk about, we get into TMNT lore and like its origins and just TMNT in general, and then we start talking about the issue. Mm-hmm. So get into that if you haven't listened to that already. Otherwise, we're gonna start plugging away into this second issue because we have thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love the opening of it. Just April in bed. Her old grandma ass.
Oh God.
Of course.
You know what though?
She looks old in it, man.
But I mean, obviously, it takes place years after, what the current continuity was in. But even right off the bat, though, even with April, you find out that it's already going to be a really dark story because
she's missing limbs.
She's missing limbs. I even wrote that down. I'm like, April missing limbs. Like, holy
that
cow.
surprised me. I was like, missing arm and leg.
Yeah.
I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah, so it's like something happened like bad that that she was kind of caught in the middle of. But this one really cements it. I know that after the first issue, everybody thought, oh my god, they revealed that it was Michelangelo was the last Ronin. And I remember outlets all saying, don't put too much credence into it because they are trying to get you to believe one thing when something else can really happen down the road. And honestly, I think they pretty much confirm in this one that Michelangelo is in fact the last Ronin.
Yep. She calls him Mikey several times. He responds to it. So clearly it's Michelangelo.
And
clearly he's just delusional. It's Raphael.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, April knows the turtles. She's grown up with them. She even, I think in some origins, she's even named the turtles. Like she was the one who was responsible for that. Yeah.
Well, that and the fact that there's this scene where when he's talking, making tea, and the other three turtles are at the table. They're ghosts. They're instead of the original or the first comic where they're kind of in the shadows and they're all nondescript. This one, they're very clear about which turtle is which.
Yeah,
they have they're referring to themselves as Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and they have their weapons on them. Like you can clearly tell which ones are dead. Yeah. So it's like that was kind of that was for me. I was like, wow, I'm surprised that they kind of destroyed that illusion already, because I kind of thought the theme of this entire comic was who's the last Ronin.
Yeah, but honestly,
to be honest, I'm glad they didn't play up that angle, because that would have gotten old fast.
But I still think
that kind of like, ooh, who is this mystery new character? It gets old really quick.
But at the same time, like I knew that wasn't going to be the focus, because you can't really go 5 issues and not reveal until like issue 4 or 5 who the last Ronin actually is. Yeah. But there's a lot more story building going on here that they can really dive into, like what brought them to this point. Yeah. We only get tastes in tidbits of what was going on before that led us to this current predicament that they're in. So honestly, that is what is first and foremost pulling me in. Yeah. Is the fact of, how the hell did we get here?
Like the first few pages are even of her having the flashback where she's engaged to Casey. Yeah. And Casey Jones, and they're having him over for dinner or whatever, and then Raphael busts in the door. They were ambushed, whatever, and they talk about all that shit. And it's just that's the part I'm loving, is just seeing what led up to this point of Michelangelo going to seek revenge and all this shit. Like, and obviously the big fight scene with Raphael.
Yeah, and like I think I brought this up in the first episode of the podcast too, is honestly, it makes the most sense that it's Michelangelo. Right. Because Raphael has always been the hothead, and he's always kind of been almost, I won't say the de facto leader, but he's kind of been the one to take charge more when Leonardo is deciding, like, okay, there's right and wrong, but what do we do? And Raphael's the one who takes charge. Like, he's used to that. Donatello he already had his death in the IDW series, where he was replaced, or his consciousness went into the metalhead android turtle. And Leonardo has always been kind of front and center as the leader of the turtles. Right. Michelangelo is the one who can have the most growth and the most identity change, because he was the happy-go-lucky, always telling jokes, wisecracking turtle, but now all of a sudden, because of all of this stuff that's happened, now he has turned bitter. His character has just completely done a 180, and you're seeing almost those bits of where he knows that Leonardo's personality has to come into him so that he can get done what needs to be done, but there's a lot of Raphael in him too, where there's a lot of animosity and a lot of anger, and so he has really gone through a huge shift in character, and so it makes the most sense for it to be him.
To be honest, God, as much as it kind of hurts to say this, in the normal stuff, for the most part, the other 3 turtles seem very one-dimensional compared to Mikey. Mikey almost always... I
suppose that's true.
Mikey always almost seems like he's the audience surrogate, where he's like the place that...
He's the one to humanize them.
Yeah.
To make you feel
the one you could place yourself into the easiest.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Whereas, like, Leo is always this stoic, like, and that's, for most people, that's not going to be them. Donnie is this, like, genius, like... Tony Stark-ish type.
Basically a scientist.
That's, mind. Again, not going to be your average person. Raph is that hothead jock that, again, there's going to be some people that identify with that, but, again, not the majority of your readers.
No.
Especially, nerd culture type stuff. So Mikey's always been that, hey, I'm the weird sort of outcasty amongst the four of you.
Yeah.
So, like, he seems like the one that had the most, like, personality and stuff always.
Which is actually one of my biggest draws from this issue, was just him kind of... There was the line he said when they were talking about... when they were at the table talking about how Raphael's, I've saved your asses multiple times, and
I fought all the same fights you guys did.
Michelangelo snaps back
yeah.
at him and says, I fought all of the same fights, even the ones that you guys started. Like, his reluctance to really fight. Michelangelo's kind of always been the one where he's just gone along with it because
he's the baby brother.
He feels that's what he has to do. He never really wanted to do these fights, but now he's forced to, which plays into Paul's thing of he's the only one that he has the most compelling story.
Yeah.
Because now he's going from the reluctance to its necessity. And I love that about him, and I love that it's showing the turtles in that light where there's almost like that inner turmoil.
I think it's that line.
Yeah, it was back there where he's throwing his head.
Right here, yeah. Yeah. So it's, you stupid, pathetic fool, you always make our entire life all about you. I fought every battle you have, even the idiotic ones you started, and you still want to judge me?
Yeah, I think he's yelling at Raph.
He's yelling at Raphael because Raphael's calling him a coward because he was gonna kill himself at the end of the first issue. Or because he's basically ripping him for saying you're taking the coward's way out. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thought. It's super fascinating to me because you always think the turtles, they're the perfect team. They're all in sync. They're all you always never think of that perfect. That like there might be conflict in it.
To be honest, they are not always.
Well, no, Raphael and Leonardo have always kind of butt heads because they both kind of feel like that.
Donnie's always tried to be their arbiter too, to try to make things better, and Mikey's always just been the one that's going, dude, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, he feels like the brother that's just face palming the whole time. Like, guys, chill the fuck out, And Leonardo and Raphael have always had that contention of who should be the leader. Raphael's he's to charge in. Let's do this.
Yeah, he takes charge. He makes the decisions that Leo doesn't want to make, but knows that it's probably the decision that needs to be made.
So, and a lot of people, I don't think, realize or look deeper into like the camaraderie between the four, and just like this tests that, and I think it's very fascinating to see them in that different light.
Yeah.
So like that line particularly struck me. I remember when I read that, I was just like, "Holy shit!" Like I had to stop for a second. I'm like, "Damn,
wow, yeah,
like,
that's some heavy. Yeah, it's heavy stuff."
This is nothing I'd ever considered.
Yeah, but like you said too, I mean that battle between Karai and Raphael was just I even wrote the battle between Raph and Karai, epic, so powerful. Like, I mean, honestly, there's only so much that you can really show and do in a comic book when you have a battle. I mean, obviously, if you're gonna play a battle like on a like a cinematic outing, like TV or a movie, like you can actually see every piece of it. But this one, it's like in drawing, you are limited by the panels that you draw, but still every piece of art, every like slice that they do is just so powerful, and it's just so full of action that I'm like, this is actually one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen in a comic book. Like, it was just so well done. Yeah,
the framing, it looks really dynamic. Like it doesn't fall into some of the pitfalls that some comic book fight scenes do, where it seems, I guess, cluttered.
Yeah, it seems bloated. Like where it's like they're trying to show too much.
Yeah, because it's something I noticed with like Batman fights or any of those types of like street brawler characters, where it just sometimes like the framing of like the fights just there's too much in one single frame.
Yeah,
and like in this one, like that entire like segment where it's Raph going. It is really well set up.
Yeah,
it really is.
Like, there's a lot happening in some of them. Like, he's getting his ass kicked, but...
There is, but like, each page is only, like, they're limiting themselves to 2 panels, so you have to tell all of that action, but it's not overwhelming to the eye.
And basically. You can see, like, even in all of Raph's, like, body, like, positioning, you can see his rage with everything that's going on.
Like, so, to set it up, like, the opening thing is they're doing April's having the flashback of the Casey proposing, and they get, the ambush. Splinter's mortally wounded. She basically says to them, like, unless we find someone, he's not going to make it. And Raphael storms off to get revenge, as Raphael does. Hell, He's done that before, you know. I mean, even if you go back to like the live action movies, when
it's the emotional reaction rather than the logical one.
Yeah, he busts and he wants that vengeance right away, you know, and he basically goes to kill Karai, which in this he succeeds, quote unquote succeeds, I suppose.
I think he does,
because somebody pulls her out of the water, and we saw in the first issue that she was in the tube.
She's still in the incubation tube, or
so
whatever.
it's questionable whether she's alive or dead, but it's just and he's, you know, basically it shows that in almost one frame where she's stabbing him, he's stabbing her.
Yeah.
Boom! Like he gets his vengeance, and then he floats down into the water. So it's like it's super
right
cool and super stylized, and I absolutely love it.
And one thing I have to point out too, I'm sure that if they're the turtle fans who read this will probably have found it, but if you did not, the precursor leading up to that battle, there are people on a bus who are eating pizza. Basically, it's two guys who are eating a slice of pizza, and they say, "Whoa, you see that?" And then the other one says, "What?" And it looked like, yeah, never mind. That'd be too crazy. Well, those two people who are eating pizza, it's Eastman and Laird. it's Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who were the original creators of TMNT. So it was a nice touch. It was a truly nice touch that they
really
threw
is
in there.
Cool.
So
that's, I must say, I never would have noticed that. But
I don't know what they look like.
Yeah, see,
to be honest, I know the names and I know the stuff they've done, but like, I don't know what they look like.
And I know exactly what they look like. So
yeah, that's a cool nod. But one thing they touch on too is because Kevin and I were talking a little bit before about like their age, like they're turtles, they can live technically like 100 years or so.
Tortoises, they're like the oldest tortoise on the Galapagos was what, 100 and something?
150, I think, or something like that.
Is he still alive? Yeah, he's, but like, and like I know certain turtles can live super long times. So like, how long do you think they could have lived without ever, like, naturally, if they never fought?
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
And the reason we kind of started talking about it is there's a couple of frames in there where he was talking about, oh, you know, that like that fall should have killed me when he fell out of the building and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And April says maybe your mutations progressed. So it would be cool if they kind of dabbled in the thought of like as they get older, they kind of start looking more
mutations,
like like Tokan Razor from the movie, how, you know, the one's the snapping turtle.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see like differences in like even the shell where they start to, well, I suppose.
Well, actually, if you look at the original designs for turtles versus this,
like I would love to see like different versions of the turtles.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it could, because I mean, this really kicks off basically an expanded universe of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they've never really done anything like this where this is supposed to be told like it's basically like you're not familiar with Elseworlds, but basically when DC tells a story that is like one of their main characters, like Batman, Superman, or something of that nature, but they don't want it to be in the continuity of the Batman series or Superman, they call it Elseworlds, where it's like, this is
kind of like
an imagined,
it's an alternate dimension.
It's an alternate or imagined future that stars this. Well, it's basically, this kind of kicks that off. So honestly, they could go into future storylines, what if their mutations kept on mutating them.
Because actually,
what would they end up becoming?
A cool story they could have, even because they talk about Casey's talking to him, April's daughter, about learning like the martial arts and shit, and he talks about it'd be cool to see like even if Mikey became like her mentor, like her Splinter.
Oh yeah.
So like it's another 50 years down the road.
Rather than like having more mutants, he raises his own like ninja clan.
It would be kind of interesting to see like that evolution of.
Well, I mean, like if you look at the way they originally looked versus what they look like now, they've definitely like changed a lot.
But that's also
that could be style.
That's just the style. Yeah, that's just the style as well too.
Because I mean, you look at like even the Nickelodeon ones don't look.
No, that's Rise of the TMNT was like they really changed them.
But the mention of the mutation progressing, because I've always wondered that. I'm like, why did they stop mutating to this point? Don't you think the mutation would keep occurring?
Now,
Well, it
not
should,
necessarily.
yeah.
Not necessarily, because usually mutations once in the genome, and then it only mutates again for when you pass your genetics on to the next.
But it would be...
Your DNA doesn't constantly change.
I suppose that's true.
Well, they did that in X-Men, though, where they did their second evolutions.
Yeah, but
that's
X-Men
definitely
plays
not
fast and loose with science.
Yeah, I know they do.
But it just kind of fascinated me how like they had made mention of, well, yeah, maybe you're just still changing.
Yeah.
That was kind of a neat nod.
Yeah.
Well, it also kind of explains how they always heal.
Yeah, because she mentions that. She says you're healing faster.
Because they used to get their ass kicked all the time, and then the next issue or two they'd be ready to go again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
they never really addressed that they had a healing factor.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of a one way of being like, well, I guess you guys can heal. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, but I do find it interesting though, because they said that Casey and April were engaged, but we don't know yet if they actually got married.
Right.
Obviously, they had Casey Marie Jones, who was their daughter, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they got married at that point.
What? That's impossible. You have to be married to have children.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's so I'm really curious where they're going with that, and I would like to see a lot more of Casey Marie, just kind of kicking butt and maybe being like the next generation of ninja fighting for to help with obviously the last of the line of Saki's of Oroku is Hiroto.
To be honest, I have a feeling she is going to go with Mikey to fight at some point, because they wouldn't have brought up her reading the old book and learning and using all of their old tools in the dojo. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have brought that up if she's not prepared. If she's not prepared, it's not going to be something at some point.
That was a cool fucking segment too.
Either she's going to go with him, or the Foot at some point is going to break into the old sewers and come after them, and she'll help defend the lair.
Yeah, maybe.
That was a badass scene, actually, when he talks about after everything happened, how he just kind of went off on his own, and just the meditation and stuff. That old artwork, like just the change in art style looked fucking incredible.
When he did the the flashback and stuff. Actually, and it's funny because I actually wrote that down on my notes. Is that for his memory, the art style was so vastly different because it was actually, I think, let me see here. The art for the actual, for the issue is it Isao and Isaac Escorza, Ben Bishop. They all did different artwork, but the flashback that Mikey had that was in black and white with basically the grayscale washing and stuff, that was Kevin Eastman, and that was the style that they did in the original series when they created it. Was really? Always the black and white with the washing and stuff, with the overwash. And so Kevin Eastman doing basically the flashback to years and years past, it was such a nostalgic nod that I just absolutely loved it, and I thought, damn, that was so fitting that he did those pages right there.
Does he still do stuff even today?
Eastman? Oh yeah. Okay. Definitely does.
I didn't know if he was he hadn't done anything since then, and this is his comeback kind of thing, because that would be badass.
No. Eastman has been working basically, ever since 2011, when the TMNT series started running in IDW.
Okay.
But Laird is the one who hasn't really. He's done things here and there, but Laird has not done a whole heck of a lot since then.
But that's cool that he
but
actually did
it was.
Some of the,
it was
panels.
It was so fitting.
It looked amazing.
So fitting.
I love the disparity between it, because it just gives. It's such a fucking gorgeous book.
I do also like that it touches on that the fact that he's always going to be an outsider, because he's just in that snow area, and those people come upon him, and they're immediately they're like, oh, it's a fucking monster, let's kill it.
Yeah.
And it's a very Frankenstein type moment,
or a very Shrek type moment. They do the same thing as Shrek.
Of course.
Because he's an ogre and they think he's bad. So
Well, it was
they're
just-
trying to hunt him.
There's no donkey in this story.
It was just a cool scene anyway because he talks about going out to the snow to die.
Yeah.
But his body won't let him.
Yep.
And it's just, that's kind of further proof for like the further mutation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of just, he can't, then he comes across those people who kill just to kill.
Yeah.
And then he kind of renews his vigor to train and learn
Well,
all of the other weaponry art,
well, not
or
just
weaponry
that.
styles to
In
fight.
the one panel, it almost looks like he's trying to go like Zen and just be completely peaceful. Mm-hmm. When like it's him like meditating in that garden or whatever, it almost looks like he went like the opposite direction of, okay, rather than doing what we normally do of embracing all of this, I'm gonna just try to get rid of it, and it doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
So that's what kind
Because
of...
then like the brothers start pestering him. Actually, I'm pretty sure they do in that panel, don't they?
I don't remember. I thought that was the guys, the
No, because
ruffians.
that was in the snow.
Oh, maybe. Mm-hmm. But it was cool.
But yeah, the issue, I mean, through and through, it is definitely, I mean, it's bloody, but at the same time,
Oh, no, you're right, it is there.
it tells...
He's farming.
Okay.
It's there's a lot of shock factor, but it's not just for the shock factor. It really adds to the story and adds dimensions to the story. So I mean, honestly, the storytelling, in my opinion, of like this series so far, it's immaculate.
It really
to me.
is.
The pacing is really good.
Yes.
It is leading you slowly enough to where you're engaged, but every issue at the very end leaves you absolutely wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this is a part of the story I wouldn't mind learning more about. He's clearly in some like arena fighting.
Oh yeah.
So he rather than like he went, that's how he trained, is he went somewhere and was just fighting a bunch of other like mutants and robots and who knows what else.
Well,
I would love to learn more about what happened here.
Well, I don't recall. I want to say it was in the Michelangelo one-shot that was originally published in like 1985 or 86. He basically goes to, or maybe I'm thinking of a different story, but there is a point where Michelangelo goes to like Mars and he becomes like they haven't, the aliens there have not ever seen anything like him, and he's put into like these arena battles where he ends up just
All right,
wiping-
Planet Hulk.
Yeah, basically. Well, they did it long before
I know.
Red Hulk or before Planet Hulk,
I'm
but
just being...
but yeah, he's known as like this like champion, yeah, legendary alien because of the fact that he's whipping the floor with everybody.
Well, and the reason I like this part is because it says to adapt to every challenge, every form of combat. So this is where he learned his brother's fighting styles.
And that's why he carries all the weapons.
And this is why I would love to learn more about what happened here, who he fought, what he went through during this moment.
They could definitely dive deeper into
because that'd be really cool. Because that's basically that moment is what forged him into what he currently is in the comic.
Yeah. Definitely.
You said this is a 5-issue series,
It's
right?
going to be a 5-issue series.
So we're issue 2, and Raphael's dead, right? Do you think, or Raphael? They showed
his death.
Oh yeah.
Do you mean they're gonna go through and show each of the turtles?
I'm about to say, do you think the next one will be Leonardo and Donatello,
probably.
and then the one after that will be the other one, and then the 5th issue will be the conclusion?
I think,
do you think
so.
They'll frame it up
I think they'll frame it up where at least they are going to show. They're going to show a history of how everybody died. I think even just in the next issue. Preview art where it's basically the sword, like Leo's sword with Casey Jones's mask on there.
Oh,
then they're gonna dive into what happened to Leonardo and what happened to Casey, and they must have went down together.
Yeah, they did.
So something happened together with them, and now they're gonna dive into what happened to them.
Because they made mention when like, where's Raphael after he rushed off, and Casey was like, let's go, Leonardo, we got to catch up to him.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense then. That makes
And so this was the preview art for number 2. So then you see this is Raphael, strictly Raphael. So it's like he's going to battle. We're gonna find out what happens to him, and sure enough, in the first half of the story, you find out what happened to him.
And then I bet you the issue after that will be the explosion with Donatello, and I bet you it'll show how April lost her limbs and possibly how interesting.
So I think they're framing it. They're framing it at a really good pace.
Yeah.
And actually, one thing that I don't think you guys noted, because I pointed it out when it actually happened, is the final page. April pulls out from that safe. She pulls out that, like, whatever that...
It looked like an egg.
You said it looked like an egg, and it's...
Well, yeah, I kind of mistook it for Metalhead's head.
Yeah, and it's a robotic head. But those who don't know what that last... see, to me, that was like they're bringing him in, and it may have went over your guys' heads, it may have went over somebody else's heads. That's actually a robot, an android robot called Fugitoid.
Okay. My only concern with them bringing it in, and I really hope this doesn't happen, the Fugitoids had the ability to travel through time.
I don't think they're gonna. No,
I
don't think they're gonna make this a time travel thing.
I hope that they don't do if we jump back in time and prevent this sort of thing, or open time and pull the turtles to the future. I just hope they avoid that pitfall.
I am 100% convinced they're not going to do that, because there has been a lot of issues with Terminator doing that, where they went back in time to try to prevent it from happening, but by going back in time to prevent it, they did exactly what happened to cause it.
But you can see why I kind of have that.
It gets so messy. I do not think that they're going to dive.
That's why I just say I hope they don't fall in. I don't think they will, but I hope they don't.
This seems smarter than that to me.
But that's always like one of those big pitfalls, especially when you introduce a character like that, where it's like, now all of a sudden you could have, if you want to go the lazy way, you could have this potential time travel element. It's like, I'm
about to say, this to me doesn't feel like it would fall into that pitfall. But
then again, there have been other stories. Flashpoint didn't feel like they were going to do that, and then they did all of that stuff with the Flash. So
yeah, but that's DC. DC's trash.
Unfortunately, it's a very common comic trope.
Of course it is, because you can rectify anything with time travel.
Yeah,
but also set up so many other things with time travel. But yes, any other thoughts on it?
Hold on one second.
I don't know. I'm definitely looking forward to see where it goes.
Me too. I wish these were coming out quicker.
I know.
I've actually been having that issue a lot lately because I've been reading other comics too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm almost wondering if they'll touch on like some of the other stuff. Like there's been nothing with like Krang and what was it, Dimension X.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm almost wondering if maybe they'll do something to touch on them and why none of them are around.
What are they called?
The Rock Soldiers.
No, what is the Krang race called?
Utrums.
There we go.
Utrums.
So I'm wondering maybe they'll touch on why some of the other like Turtles villains aren't around anymore. Maybe it'd be kind of cool to see like why the rabbit.
Yosagi Yojimbo.
That'd be kind of interesting to see like all of a sudden like him why he's no longer around.
Well, they did say something about wiping out the mutants. So I wonder if maybe the reason you don't see any is because they're all done.
Well, but also too
could
the
be
mutants,
funny, like not funny, but good Easter eggs for the background.
What they're talking about with the mutants was the mutanimals.
Right.
The Mutanimals had they're actually, they play a large part in the IDW series.
Okay.
They created them long ago, but
right,
I mean, Ray Fillet, like he's a Mutanimal. He's a
is he a fish?
He's a, what is that, stingray? Yeah. They call him Ray Fillet. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's cute.
But yeah, I'm super into it.
But honestly, yeah, it's like I said, I love the series so far. It's driving me nuts that the issues are like 2 months apart instead of like 1 month. But at the same time, I understand that.
Oh yeah.
It's a bigger issue. I mean, these are I don't know if it's 48 pages or if it's even more than that, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of material, so it makes sense why it takes 2 months to create versus 1 month. But every issue just leaves me wanting more.
Especially when you look at this issue particularly, like there was not a lot that happened.
Oh,
but
he's one of them. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, but what's his name?
Leatherhead.
Yeah.
He's not.
Leatherhead.
He's not really a Mutanimal though.
Not really.
But I mean, he could be construed as one. But he's not. He's not part of the Mutanimals team because he's a bad guy.
Fucking
He
Leatherhead.
was on the cover with him.
But yeah, Mondo Gecko. Yeah, he was.
I remember the bat.
Wingnut, yeah. And then Screw Loose was like they did a 3-issue miniseries, and then they had their own, like, spin-off series, ongoing series.
He was apparently part of him at one point.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, he was.
Was he like a frenemy kind of thing?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe he went good for
Maybe
that
after
series,
the Turtles
yeah.
kicked his ass.
Yeah, maybe that, yeah.
But it's funny, you look at it, like, really, they don't go anywhere in this issue. Like, it's all in that in the old hideout, you know what I mean? So I mean, really not a lot happens, but you get so much.
There's so much backstory.
So much happened.
So much backstory that is
like,
explained, yeah.
It's that's what I'm kind of like marveling at is the fact that it's really didn't go anywhere, but we got so much out of it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
and that
that's-
impresses me.
To be honest, that's one thing I do really like, that comics don't kind of get enough credit for that sometimes, is sometimes there is just amazing world building.
Really
And
is,
this
yeah.
issue is basically nothing but
world
building the
Yeah.
past, the present, and then alluding to where they're about to go.
But it never felt
Stale.
yeah, it was not a slog to read.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like
Yeah.
some comics you read them and you're just like, Jesus
No.
Christ.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's comics like that it's just like, oh my god, will this thing end already?
Well, and the other thing,
This is not one of them.
like, they haven't really fallen into it, or is the other thing is, as you're reading, you're going, oh, I've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
And I never felt that with these so
and
far.
I've read a lot of turtle stories, and I've never read anything like this before.
Yeah.
So-
It's super cool to
Well,
me.
I mean, I've
Yeah.
read other I'm the last of X group type things before, but it's the frame. Somehow the framing in this one just feels different.
Yeah. I'm about to say it wasn't like Wolverine, I would assume.
Days of Future Past and stuff
course.
like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
or
see,
yeah.
With someone like Wolverine, it seems stale because Wolverine is essentially Marvel's Superman in the way it feels.
No,
to
that's
me.
Hyperion.
But like
Duh.
that's kind of what. So I mean, taking an all powerful character and making him the last. Well, it's like no shit. Of course he is, because. But like someone like Michelangelo, who, for all intents and purposes, is the weakest turtle. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're right.
In terms of this,
you're right.
I mean, he's not the most intelligent. He's not the most brave. He's also not the most. He's not the strongest.
yeah.
So it's like he's the outlier.
Yeah.
This
He was
is
the
set up
untapped
so
potential.
perfectly for him.
Yeah,
he
it
really
does.
is.
He's
It
the,
really
the
does.
potential for all three in one.
Yeah.
And that's like those kinds of stories I always gravitate towards is like
Yeah.
the underdog kind of
Because
where
he's literally the underdog.
like ordinary Joe thrust into a supernatural situation.
That's why,
Yeah.
like me saying, Mikey's always been the audience surrogate. Is,
yeah, he's the most relatable.
Basically, a regular guy who gets thrown into extraordinary circumstances
Yeah.
will always pull people in.
That's why like the Shin Megami games to me are so powerful, is because you're just an average schmuck. You're not a soldier. You're not a police officer. You're
That
not a
was always-
combat trained this or that. You're just a regular dude.
except
kid.
for when you are.
That was actually
And
what.
even then, he's not very good as a cop.
That's always what pulled people into the Silent Hill games, and why people did not like the later games that were more combat heavy, because the games specifically made your protagonist just an everyday person who was doing something that was like. In the first one, it was Harry Mason looking for his daughter. He was just a dad who wanted his daughter back.
Yeah.
He wasn't a trained soldier. He wasn't somebody who had all these powers. You had James Sunderland, who was just a grieving husband who lost his wife, who just wanted to find her again in Silent Hill. You had Heather Morris, who was just a teenage girl who literally lost her father and just didn't want anything to do with this. So it's like you had characters that were not by any stretch of the imagination heroes or were anything more than what they were, and they were thrown into an extraordinary circumstance. And it's the same thing with Michelangelo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels relatable.
He's been the party dude who life is not a party anymore, and life has really beat him down and has been trying to keep him down, but now he's found strength to keep going and has something to fight for. In taking out the last of the Oroku line. And so, honestly, it's just, oh, God, it just leaves me wanting more. And I find that when I finish, like, each issue, 1 and 2, it's like a good movie where it's just like you keep praying like, oh no, please don't let it end here, please don't let it end here, and then it ends and you're just like, damn it, I gotta wait again.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too.
Yeah.
And that it takes something. I'll tell you, it takes something special for me.
Oh yeah, no, it's yeah. And to be able to read through a 48-page comic where it doesn't feel like it's dragging on, it doesn't feel like it's 48 pages, and it leaves you wanting more, that's a special comic in my eyes.
Yeah. This is one I almost wouldn't mind, even though I'll get all the individual issues. Like, I'm sure they'll do like
they'll do a collected. Yeah, they'll do a collected.
Yeah, I would love to get that. Yeah. Because this is badass. Like,
yeah,
I'm
this
still
is
thoroughly impressed.
This is one that it's like I'm even going back to like what they'll do is they'll release like second prints and third prints and stuff. Like the number 2 is gonna get a second print. I'm finding myself even wanting to get the second print
just for the alternate covers.
Just for the alternate covers.
Yeah. Well, all right.
So,
that'll do it then for the last Ronin issue 2.
Yeah. So let us know what you guys think. Have you been reading The Last Ronin? Are you excited about it? Do you have any theories or any kind of suspicions of what's going to happen or what we haven't been told that you think is going to happen? So let us know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll be back when
Last Ronin number 3
3
comes out. Yes.
Sweet.
Yes, we will.
Rolling. 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 What?
What?
I'm running full circle, boys!
You suck.